Welcome to episode 15 of Bonding and Beer. I'm Rolando Nunez, your host, and today's topic is going to be shade stability. Let's go! What has Rolando been up to? Well, we had an event that was held here at Bisco, and the lecturer for that event was Dr. Carla Cohn. You can follow her on Instagram. Her handle is @KidsDentistCarla. And it was super cool. The event was about pediatric dentistry and how she approaches it. A bunch of people from different parts of the country were here. And we did an Instagram Live using these super cool smart glasses. And it was super interesting because instead of using the phone to record, we used the glasses as the camera. So it was super, super interesting. You can see that on my Instagram. But it was super fun to have Dr. Carla Cohn here. Now, are there any stories that I can share from my recent travels? I haven't traveled much recently. However, I can share a story with you. Last Friday, I was coming into Bisco, and I see, as I am entering the building, I see this dude walking in to the building with a guitar, okay? A guitar case. Now, in my mind, I thought it was something different. You know, like back in the day with the mafia, they will have like Tommy guns in these like violin cases. So this guy's carrying a guitar case, so God knows what he has inside. You know, so of course, I started talking to the people who are responsible for the safety committee, you know, and say, hey, there's a guy with a guitar case here. And it's a Friday. We don't know if he's going postal or anything. However, it was a guitar, and he brought it in, and I thought he was going to serenade somebody, and I asked him, but no, he just brought it in because he was concerned about the temperature outside, and it could have an effect on his guitar and whatever. I was expecting some sort of concert, but it never happened. But it was interesting to see people coming to work with musical instruments. This shows that we are very cultured here at Bisco. A lot of fun, right? Now, if you want to follow and find out about my recent travels, beer drinking, and musical serenades, you can follow me on Instagram. My handle is @RolandBond, okay? But most important, you can follow us at Bonding and Beer on Instagram. You can check us out on YouTube to watch every episode of our podcast, Bonding and Beer, or you can send us an email if you have any questions or beer suggestions, bondingandbeer@gmail.com. Let's go. Today, we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic, shade stability of resin cements. But before we get into that, let's open the beer. Let's open the beer. This is why probably 95% of you are listening to this podcast. It is the beer. Let's go. I have here with me a really interesting can for those of you who are just listening. This beer is a tall boy. And the name of the beer is Mai Tai Paradise Falls Fruited Hazy IPA. Right there, fruited. It's going to be an issue. I'm not a big fan of these concoctions where they add different types of flavors to beer. However, I always say I'm willing to try it. And of course, craft beer is nothing else but an artistic expression of some brewmaster somewhere. and he's providing a product that he believes is worthwhile trying. So we're going to do that, okay? Now, I have here all the information about this beer, okay? This beer, again, the name is Mai Tai Paradise Falls Fruited Hazy IPA. It's a 7.5%, okay, a tall boy, like I said. And the company or the brewery that makes it is called Tarantula Hill Brewing from Thousand Oaks, California. When your brewery is called Tarantula, when you used wild animals, tarantula, to, use it as a name for a product, I'm all for it. 100%. Like, what is the name of your brewery? Miller. Like, who cares, man? No one cares about that. But when you say that you work for a company called Tarantula, that's awesome. That's badass right there, okay? Now, the can there is a lot of purple, blue, magenta. There is a little bit of a beach scene here. It's, I'm not going to say colorful, but there is a lot of dark purple and dark pinks and blues here in this can. It's super cool, really creative, nice logo. And I'm going to read here the brewery's beer description. A big hazy IPA stuffed with unruly amounts of tangerine and pineapple. That's going to be a problem. That's going to be a problem right there. But it doesn't matter, because I am willing to sacrifice my taste buds into trying this concoction. Absolutely. It's a 7.5. There's going to be some tipsy, in the air. So it's awesome. The beer is named after our local waterfall. Sip on this Mai Tai inspired concoction and drift off to your favorite beach. So this seems to be very fruity, and it is definitely going to be very tropical, okay? What made me choose this beer? It came in that box that was a gift from somebody. A bunch of different IPAs, and now Jeremy and Cam, our producers here, they will pick a random beer from the box, put it in the fridge, and serve it. Now, Jeremy's responsible if I like this or not. Cam is just here for the ride, okay? But I'm going to make Jeremy totally responsible if I like this or not. Have I tried this before? Absolutely not. So we're going to see what's what, okay? All right, let's crack this guy. Now, I'm going to put this. I've been told that I usually do this part of the podcast wrong. I don't take the beer, put it close to the microphone and whatnot. Let's do it right. Okay, let's go, man. It is, we're in the middle of the week. It's 2:00 in the afternoon, and we're about to pour a beer while we're working. I can sense the fruitiness of this thing just by having it next to my face, okay? So I'm going to pour it here. Yes, I'm going to pour it. The whole criticism thing, is that what you're going to pick on? Why don't you pick on the type of topics that I choose to develop during this podcast? You pick on the fact, he doesn't know how to pour it. Of course I know how to pour it. Jeez. Let's go. I already screwed this one up. Yes. Look at that. Look at that. I have been what is the term? This is like bad juju, man. Bad juju. Cam here is laughing. Jeremy's laughing. Everybody's laughing. It's just stupid. Stop criticizing my pour. This is how I pour my beer, okay? You know whose dad is going to be real proud? Tim Sedlacek's dad. Because he loves the way I pour my beer. He loves the way I pour my beer. He knows how to pour a beer. He's in Prague right now pouring awesome beer, but this one I'm pretty sure he's not gonna like. I screwed this one up, but you know what? It is what it is, my guy. It is what it is. Let's see. It is a hazy IPA, and also there is a messy IPA right here on top of this table. Okay, this is a hazy IPA. Yes, there is a lot of fruit a lot of fruit. I can smell the pineapple from here. Hopefully this stuff doesn't land on my pants. Let's try it.
Sip, 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 sip.
Yes. It is definitely like having a lemonade with a lot of alcohol. You can tell it's an IPA. It's bitter, it's strong, it's got a little kick to it. But you can definitely also feel the different layers of fruit. It's not bad. It's actually very refreshing. I don't mind it. With that being said, I'll give my full review at the end of this episode. Let's go. Okay, so, when you think about shade stability, and why is this important, and actually why it's becoming even more important nowadays. Well, the first thing we need to understand that shade stability is related to dual cure cements, specifically to dual cure cements. Let's start with, a solid foundation. Dual cure cements are not the same. They are not all the same. They are different in formulation, in viscosity, in shades, and also physical properties, but also in shade stability. They are different because they are, formulated by different people. There is no standard when it comes down to the formulation. There are standards when it comes down to minimum physical properties, film thickness, working time, setting time. There are standards for that. But the formulation is dependent on each company and each group of chemists that, formulate the material. But it is important to establish that not all dual cure cements are the same. Now, why is shade stability a big deal in today's dentistry, restorative dentistry? It's because restorations or preparations are becoming more conservative. The amount of tooth structure that is being removed is less, okay? There is a trend towards that, and it's a good trend. When you think about the possibilities of not having to do much reduction and rely on bonding, that is a good thing. But that also makes restorations thinner. When you have thinner restorations and static restorations that have certain levels of translucency, the shade of the cement will have an impact in how the restoration looks. Not only immediately after, delivering the restoration, but also over time. If the cement is not stable when it comes to shade and it changes, and the change is usually it darkens, and then you will have that change have an effect on how the restoration looks. So this is something to consider as a variable, as a factor when approaching a restorative procedure, doing minimally invasive preparations. So that's why, shade stability is of the essence. So let's define a dual cure cement. And I believe I already did an episode of different types of cements and what they're used for and whatnot. And if you haven't heard that one, I will highly recommend that you do. So that way you have a little bit of a background, and then, you come into this one and you know where I'm coming from and whatnot. So a resin cement, by definition, a dual cure resin cement by definition is a resin cement that has the ability to cure or polymerize chemically by mixing it, but also it has light activators or a light activation system within the formula that will allow for it to polymerization to occur once it is exposed to the curing light that basically has a very specific intensity and wavelength. And when you have all those things together, you have a dual cure cement. So you can actually cement your crown or your restoration, let's say, and not touch it with a curing light, and it will polymerize chemically. You can hit it with a light, and it will polymerize by light activation, wherever the light is able to reach. Wherever the light or the intensity of that light is not able to reach properly the cement, it will cure chemically. That's the idea behind a dual cure cement, okay? Now, there are two types of dual cure cements in the market right now. You have self-adhesive resin cements, which do not require the use of a bonding agent on the prep, right? Because the adhesive itself will bond to the tooth structure. Not very strong though. And this is where your preparation must have the proper retention. Okay? The bond is not very strong. Not as strong as you can achieve if you use a bonding agent. And then you have your traditional dual cure resin cements that require the use of a bonding agent to actually work on top of that prep. So you have those two types of cements. Now, there are some marketing, efforts to try to take a self-adhesive cement and combine it into a category that is now called universal resin cements, which they can be used with a bonding agent or without a bonding agent, okay, in self-adhesive mode. It's nothing more than a self-adhesive resin cement, dual cure cement, that you use an adhesive with, okay? It's more of a marketing move, but they exist, and they are now categorized as universal, okay? Now,
Sip, sip, sip.
their chemical, ooh, come here. I got hit by a pineapple in my eye. I mean, this stuff, dude, is so fruity. It's crazy. You know, it is crazy. If you like fruit, not fruitcake though. Fruitcake is disgusting. But if you like fruit, like natural fruit, if you like pineapples, this is your jam for sure. This is, if you like, I love pineapples. Not a big fan of fruit and beer, but this is making me happy. It's actually pretty solid. I want to say that I might be changing the view and my bias toward fruity beers. This is actually pretty good.
Sip, sip.
Getting back into topic over here, right? So the chemical formula of, let's say, more traditional resin cements in the past, dual cure cements, was a formula that usually had a tertiary amine as a base, and then you have a catalyst. That's why your dual cure cements have two components. Your catalyst was usually benzoyl peroxide. And these two elements, when they were mixed, you will have polymerization occurring, right? So that was basically what most cements had as a basic formula. You had other components added to that formula, like inhibitors, stabilizers, accelerators, light activation systems, or fillers, different monomers. But in general, you needed a base and a catalyst. Nowadays, the formula is different. The formula is totally different, okay? But what happened was that when you had that tertiary amine and benzoyl peroxide, or BPO, base catalyst system, research was done regarding shade stability, and it was found that there was a change in the shade over time of these cements that contain this tertiary amine, BPO, chemical structure. And is this a big deal in let's say, an all ceramic restoration that is fairly thick? Probably not. Probably not. In the posterior region? Probably not. The cement changes shade over time. It's not going to be a big deal. But if you're working in the anterior region and your restoration is not that thick, and let's say the restoration is fairly translucent, the shade of the cement will have an impact on how the restoration looks, specifically for veneers, specifically for thin veneers. And there was a moment where people were using dual cure cements for veneer cementation. And they encountered this issue that over time, the cement will shift its shade to a darker shade. And now the restoration started to look darker. And this is not good because the patient, is expecting for the restoration to maintain its shade over time. So technically, a veneer shouldn't shift shade. But if the cement does and the restoration is thin, that change or that shift in shade will have a negative impact on the aesthetics of the restoration. Now, the research showed that the responsible for the shade shifting in dual cure cements was the tertiary amine. And the tertiary amines, what they will do is that they will oxidize and they will become darker. Okay? They will make the cement become darker. It will get darker over time. Okay? This research has been published. There are many articles out there that talk about the shade stability
Sip, sip.
of dual cure cements, showing that if it contained a tertiary amine, it was not going to be shade stable. Again, this is a big deal when you have thin restorations. And at the time, the thinnest restoration were the veneers. Okay? So the people that were doing veneers, the option that was provided was to use a light cured cement. And that's why you have many different light cure cements out there in the market. You have Choice 2 from Bisco or E-Cement from Bisco. You have Reliax veneer from 3M. You have Veriolink aesthetic light cure or Veriolink veneer from Ivoclar. You have so many different veneer cements out there. Some people like to warm up their composite and use it as veneer cements. So the reason why light cure cements came into the market was because if you use a dual cure cement for, veneer cementation, and if the cement contained a tertiary amine in its formula, which most likely it would at the time, we're talking about probably the early 2000s, there was a chance that the appearance of the veneer was going to change. It was going to look darker, and the patient was not going to be happy. And you know what you don't want? Unhappy patients, my guy. So using a dual cure cement that contains tertiary amines is not a good idea. Don't do it, but you need to be aware. You need to know if the cement that you're using contains a tertiary amine, okay? Because it will shade shift. Again, back in the day, in the year 2000, close to the 2000, 2001, 2002, the only thin restoration that was being performed were veneers. But nowadays, things are a little different now.
Sip, sip, sip.
People are doing more conservative work, thinner restorations, less tooth reduction. So you can have a crown that has very little tooth reduction. You have a very thin restoration, at 360 degrees. And if you use something that is not going to be shade stable, it will show, or it can show. So these are things to consider, especially if you are thinking about being more conservative when it comes to prepping and relying more on bonding, okay? So companies came out with light cure cements, but also companies came out with amine-free cements. Dual cure cements that remove the tertiary amine BPO component of the formula and substitute it with something different. Now, here's something interesting. The fact that I substitute something doesn't mean that whatever I'm substituting that with is not going to have a detrimental effect. I have to test that too. So yes, the tertiary amine, it was proven that it was responsible for the shade shifting. But whatever I'm adding now, and believe me, companies add different things because now there's like a free range of different base catalyst systems out there. You don't know if they're going to shade shift. A lot of companies claim that their stuff is shade stable. We've done some testing and we have found that a lot of the tertiary, amine-free dual cure cements are not shade stable. Listen to me again. Come here. We found through internal testing that a lot of the amine-free dual cure cements are not shade stable. They are amine-free, but that doesn't mean that the cement is shade stable. So it will get darker. We saw it. We have data. I'm not doing this to talk smack about other companies. That's not what I'm doing. I'm here to share information with you all so you can make an intelligent and rational decision if you're going to use a dual cure cement for restorations that have high aesthetic demands. You don't want to cement a crown here on your, lateral, on a patient's lateral incisor, and that cement shifting shades over time, because that patient, he's not going to be happy. But you know who's happy? I am. This Hazy India Pale Ale, my guy. This is good stuff. I think it was apricot that was here, pineapple and apricot. I don't remember, but I'm feeling mighty tropical, my guy. I like this stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Sip, 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 sip.
Now, this whole tertiary amine ordeal, companies are actually telling you it's shade stable and now you can use it with any adhesive because tertiary amines are also responsible for, the compatibility issues that some adhesive might encounter, not being able to work together, to be able to talk to each other. When you remove the tertiary amine, theoretically, you can use, low pH adhesives and it will work. And that can be true. But again, testing has to be done in order to actually see if any amine-free cement can actually be used with low pH adhesives and still be compatible. We don't know if that is true. We're testing right now. And we're finding out that some cements are shade stable. Amine-free cements are shade stable. And other cements are not shade stable, but they are compatible with low pH dental adhesives. So the conclusion is not all cements are the same. They don't all behave the same. And this is something that you have to realize, okay? If the cement is going to be a component of the aesthetic outcome, you need to understand that you run into the risk, if you're using a dual cure cement, that you might have some shade shifting, even if it is amine-free, okay? There's a little story that when it comes down to making the right decision. I was driving and I stopped at a gas station. Initially, the stories that I share are funny, but this one is not very funny. I stopped at a gas station and there was this senior citizen. Man, I am getting old and I'm going to get to that point. And so are you. You are. Whatever your age is, you're going to get to that point where half of what's going on, you're not going to understand. Okay? It's part of, it's this, it's the cycle of life. I get out of the thing. I pull, I pump my gas. I am leaving the gas station and I see this senior citizen looking at the pump, wearing glasses, trying to figure it out. I get out and I ask him, do you need help? And he turns around and says, yes, I'm confused. Of course, the slot where you can put the quarters was sealed. And the only way you can turn on the pump was by using a credit card. And he's like, I can put my credit card here, but there is no slot because you can only use a credit card with a chip. And he didn't understand that. And I'm like, I used my phone, Apple Pay. I think it was $2. Turned the machine on. and I took, the pump, and I just, pumped some air into the guy's tires. And, as I'm leaving, I say, are you okay? Are you fine? Are you ready to go? He's like, yeah, thank you. And he tells me, I hope something good happens to you today. And you know what happened to me today? I got this beer, my guy. I got Hazy India Pale Ale. This one is called Paradise Falls Fruity Hazy IPA. If you do well, good things will happen to you. Be kind, my guy. Be kind. And good things will happen. So I'm going to give you a couple of road tips. Instead of pro tips, we call them road tips. So here's number one. If the restoration is thin, and by thin, I mean less than 1.5 millimeters, all around, you can actually use a light cure cement. You don't have to use a dual cure cement. Because if you have a good light, a powerful curing light, you will be able to properly polymerize that light cure cement. There is something for you to think about, okay? Road tip number 2. The way shape-shifting is measured is by calculation of a number called the delta E. And this number should be less than 2. If it's above 2, it can actually be, you can see it by the naked eye, all right? So if it's less than 2, you're not going to be able to see it. So request the delta E value of the dual cure cement that you're about to use from the manufacturer. And that way, with that delta E value, if it's less than 2, and then you can rest assured that even if there is a little bit of shape shifting, you're not going to be able to see it, by the naked eye. Road tip number 3. Follow the instructions for use of the manufacturer. Always. That is always going to be a road tip. Because remember, when you bought that piece of furniture from IKEA, and you open the darn instructions, and you decided, you know what, I can do this on my own, and then you ended up with a crooked piece of furniture and about 17 bolts and nuts surplus. What? No, you need to follow the instructions. Always, for anything, including your dental materials. Follow the instructions by the manufacturer. Let's go. Beer review. I never imagined that some pineapple was going to make me so happy. I got to tell you, my guy. So the name of this beer, Mai Tai Paradise Falls. What do I think about? It's awesome. I was just talking to Cam about, he was telling me, hey, Ro, you always say you don't like fruit beers, but every time you drink a new fruit beer, you go like, oh, I kind of like it. I do kind of like it. And maybe I am just going to change my view on these things. Because you know what? I am entitled to change my opinion.
Sip, sip.
And I'm liking this pineapple tropical storm of hazy IPA that is hitting my face. What do I think about this beer? It's awesome. Did it match the brewery description? To the T. To the T. Unruly amounts of tangerine and pineapple. I thought it was apricots. It's tangerine. Do I feel it? Yes, there is citrus. A little bit of sourness there. Very well balanced. I really like this beer for a fruity IPA. But I do like it. Will I drink it again? Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I will definitely drink this again. 100%.
Sip, sip.
Ooh, let's go. What would I rate this beer? Listen, I'm going to give this beer a double score. This is why. This is a totally new category for me now. Fruity beers. Fruity beers. Uncharted territory that I am willing to just explore. As a fruity beer, I'm going to give this guy a 4.9. A 4.9 as a fruity beer. Now, as a regular beer, or a beer that I would drink, whatever they serve it, what kind of score do I give this? 4.9! This is awesome, dude. This pineapple dreamy stuff. Let's go. By the way, I'm going to take everything back that I said about Jeremy choosing the wrong beer for me. I'm going to make Jeremy totally responsible if I like this or not. Nope, he did a great job. All, more power to him. Let him choose the beer. He did a fantastic job today. Thank you, Jeremy. I'm already slurring my words. Here's the first question from Cassandra Stewart. Can I use dual cure for veneers and thin onlays? You can, as long as you are using a cement that doesn't shade shift. It has to be an amine-free dual cure cement. And you must know what the delta E value is. You have to know. Otherwise, you may run into issues when it comes to shade stability over time. Okay? But you can. You can. Second question from Derek Cobb. Why should I include a shade-stable dual-cure cement in my practice?
Sip, sip, sip.
That's a good question. If you are doing traditional prep for crown and bridges and whatnot, where you're doing a lot of reduction, a dual-cure shade-stable cement doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't really matter. But if you're doing more conservative preps, and hey, I know everyone wants to say, my preps sound conservative. Well, no, they're not. Some people are more conservative than others. If you're doing a preparation and the thickness of your preparation is less than 1.5 millimeters all around, then you're being extremely conservative. And this is where a shade-stable dual-cure cement comes into play. It's easy to use. You can bond. You should bond, and it's going to be shade-stable. You need to know the delta E. You need to know if this amine-free dual-cure cement is actually shade-stable. And you can get that information from the manufacturer. Or you can write me an email, and I'll tell you. You know what I'm saying? Come here. You can write to me and I'll tell you. It's up to you. Send us a note. Here's another question from Carmen Munoz. What is your favorite place to travel for work?
Sip, sip, sip.
Not the airport. Not the airport. I don't want to travel anymore. I'm getting old for this. Okay? But if I had to choose somewhere to travel on a consistent basis, I would probably choose Charleston, South Carolina. And the reason why I'm going to choose Charleston, South Carolina is that every time I go there, I meet with friends, Dr. Adamo Tarantonio and Dr. Amanda C. There is a program over there called Impress, and this is by no means I plug into the program, but I participate with them in that continuing education program called Impress. And it's not about necessarily the educational component. It's just so good to see my friends. When I have to get on a plane and then go to God knows where, and someone that I've never met is waiting for me at the airport, and then they take me to a hotel, and then from the hotel I go and lecture, and then get on a cab and go and have lunch, and then go to another. I don't want to do that anymore. I've been doing that for too long. My favorite place to travel is when I can travel to a place where there are friends waiting for me. That's my favorite place. And every time I go to Charleston, South Carolina, there is a lot of beer going on and a lot of friends going on. So I really like going over there. This about wraps it up for this episode of Bonding and Beer. I hope you enjoyed it. Important. Our next episode, we're going to have a guest. His name is Brian Rossetti. And Brian Rossetti is a senior member of our sales staff here at Bisco. Why am I bringing him to our Bonding and Beer podcast? Because he's got great stories about, how do I explain this? About the encounters that he's had over the course, like over a decade, with dentists and with dental assistant and dental hygienists and labs that just ask the most incredible stuff. You know, he's got stories to share. And every time I talk to Brian, he tells me, hey, Rolando, I got a new one. And he shares a story, and it's just extremely interesting. So I thought this will make a great episode, this podcast episode. So I asked him, hey, would you mind coming to the episode and participate? And he said yes. So he's going to be here. It's going to be interesting. My name is Rolando Nunez. Paradise Falls Fruity Hazy IPA. I've changed my mind. See you next time.